The first time Ethan caught Daniel looking at him like that, it felt like being struck by lightning. The man who never let his tie loosen, who never let a hair fall out of place, was watching him with a jealousy so raw it nearly cracked the walls of their office. The irony? Daniel was his boss, and in public, he acted as if Ethan was nothing more than an entry-level analyst who should know his place. Ethan had learned to play along, smiling at the right times, keeping conversations crisp and professional, making sure no one could point a finger at something more. But those stolen glances, the flash of irritation when Ethan laughed with someone else, the way Daniel's jaw tightened if another man leaned too close, it was impossible to ignore. And Ethan, damn him, enjoyed every second of it. Daniel had a reputation in the firm. Sharp, untouchable, cold as the New York skyline in February. He was the man who closed deals with a single handshake, the one the partners whispered about as the future of the company. Ethan, on the other hand, had joined just a year ago, brilliant with numbers, reckless with charm, the kind of guy who turned heads at happy hour without even trying. That morning, Ethan walked into the office with a coffee cup in one hand and a grin tugging at his lips. He'd been out late, maybe too late, and he could feel Daniel's eyes on him the moment he stepped past the glass door. Ethan didn't have to look up to know it, could sense it. That quiet burn of jealousy cloaked in Daniel's carefully constructed facade. Rough night. Daniel's voice came, flat, neutral, as Ethan placed his coffee on the desk opposite his. Depends on your definition of rough, Ethan replied, letting his tone drip with suggestion. He didn't miss the flicker of Daniel's gaze, the way it lingered a fraction too long on the open collar of his shirt. Silence stretched taut as a wire. Then Daniel turned back to his laptop, fingers moving across the keys like nothing had happened. But Ethan knew better. What Daniel didn't know, or maybe refused to admit, was that Ethan had figured him out months ago. He saw through the walls Daniel built, the distance he enforced. Every time Daniel pulled away in meetings, every time he reminded Ethan about professionalism, it only screamed louder. I care too much. It was almost cruel, this little dance of theirs. Ethan flirting at the edges, Daniel pretending not to feel, but jealousy gnawing at him like a starving animal. Sometimes Ethan wondered how much longer Daniel could keep it up. The real breaking point began on a Wednesday afternoon, the kind of day where the office hummed with stale air and overused coffee machines. Ethan had been assigned to work closely with a visiting consultant, Michael, tall, charming, with an accent that made half the office swoon. They'd been laughing over some spreadsheet glitch when Daniel walked in. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Daniel's eyes, cool and unreadable to everyone else, burned holes straight through Ethan. Michael didn't notice he kept leaning closer, showing Ethan something on his laptop screen. Ethan, for once, didn't bother to hide his amusement. Later, when the meeting ended and Michael left, Daniel stayed behind. He closed the door, his hand lingering on the knob for too long. Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, waiting. You think this is funny? Daniel asked, his voice low, dangerous. Ethan tilted his head, feigning innocence. What exactly? The way you, Daniel stopped, jaw clenched, as if the words themselves were a betrayal. He shook his head, stepping closer. The way you act, like it doesn't matter, like people don't notice. Ethan's smirk softened into something more honest. Maybe it does matter. Maybe I just like watching you pretend it doesn't. Daniel froze, the mask cracking just enough for Ethan to see the man beneath it, one who cared, who burned, who wanted. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Daniel stepped back, straightening his tie like armor. We can't do this, he said. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice a whisper meant to cut through every wall Daniel had built. Then stop looking at me like you already are. From that day on, things shifted. Subtle at first. A longer pause when their eyes met across the boardroom. The brush of fingers when Daniel handed him a folder. The way Ethan felt the heat of Daniel's presence even when they weren't speaking. But the distance remained, too. Daniel was relentless about it, reminding Ethan about deadlines, questioning his reports more harshly than anyone else's, drawing clear, cold lines in the sand. Yet every jealous glance told another story. It was maddening, intoxicating, cruelly sweet. For Ethan, the hardest part wasn't the distance, it was the possibility. Because if Daniel felt half of what his eyes confessed, then maybe, just maybe, they were both standing on the edge of something real. And Ethan, reckless as ever, wasn't about to step back. Daniel had always believed control was strength. But the night he found Ethan on the rooftop, New York's skyline shimmering behind him, he realized control was killing him piece by piece. Ethan stood there, hands gripping the railing, the city's lights dancing in his eyes like he belonged to another world, a freer one. "You're avoiding me," Ethan said without turning around. His voice was quiet, but it carried enough weight to crush Daniel's carefully built defenses. "I'm protecting you," Daniel answered, his throat tight. "This can't happen. Not here. Not with everything on the line." Ethan finally turned, his expression torn between hurt and defiance. "Protecting me? Daniel, you're protecting yourself. From gossip. From vulnerability. From the truth you're too afraid to live with." Daniel's chest ached as if Ethan had reached inside and twisted the truth out of him. For months he had hidden behind his position, behind rules and reputation. But every glance, every jealous spark had betrayed him, and Ethan had seen it all. "I can't lose everything I've worked for," Daniel whispered, stepping closer. "You don't understand what it took to get here." "I don't care about the firm," Ethan snapped, eyes glistening. "I care about you, and if you'd rather keep pretending, then fine. But don't you dare tell me I imagined the way you look at me." The rooftop went silent except for the hum of traffic below. Daniel's fists clenched, his pulse hammering against his ribs. Then, slowly, painfully, he let the truth fall from his lips. "You didn't imagine it." Ethan's breath hitched. Daniel reached out, hesitant, and brushed the back of Ethan's hand with his fingers. That small, fragile touch broke the dam. Ethan turned, closing the space between them, and before Daniel could second-guess himself, their lips collided. The kiss was desperate, messy, years of restraint burning away in an instant. For the first time, Daniel wasn't the untouchable boss. He was just a man hungry, terrified, alive. But love, like everything else, demanded courage. The following weeks weren't easy. Whispers spread through the office about Daniel's sharp temper and Ethan's sudden absences from Friday happy hours. They were careful, too careful, until the strain nearly cracked them apart again. One night, Ethan pushed back. "I'm not asking you to shout it from the rooftops," he said, voice trembling. "I'm just asking you to stop pretending I don't exist when someone else walks in the room." Daniel swallowed hard, shame creeping up his spine. "I don't know how." "Then learn," Ethan whispered. "Because if you can't, Thysis won't survive." It was the ultimatum Daniel feared, but also the one he needed. He had spent so long hiding behind masks that he'd forgotten what it meant to truly live. The turning point came at a company gala. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and laughter, but Daniel's gaze never left Ethan, who looked devastating in a black suit, his smile easy, his presence magnetic. When a senior partner leaned too close to Ethan, whispering something in his ear, Daniel's jealousy surged like wildfire. For once, he didn't hide it. He crossed the room, ignoring the startled looks, and placed a firm hand at the small of Ethan's back. "Excuse us," Daniel said curtly, steering Ethan away. Ethan raised a brow once they were alone in a corner. Subtle. Daniel's pulse raced, but he held Ethan's gaze. "I'm done pretending." And before fear could choke him, Daniel pressed a kiss to Ethan's lips. Right there, in the middle of the gala, with eyes on them and whispers already forming. It wasn't reckless, it was liberation. Ethan pulled back just enough to grin, breathless. "Took you long enough." The aftermath wasn't easy. Some colleagues gossiped, others offered cautious support. A few doors quietly closed, but others opened. Daniel discovered that vulnerability didn't make him weaker, it made him real. And Ethan? He stood by him, fierce and unshakable. They learned to navigate together the long days at the firm, the quiet nights in Daniel's apartment where laughter replaced silence, the mornings when Daniel's hand lingered at Ethan's waist as sunlight spilled across the sheets. For once, Daniel didn't feel alone at the top. He felt seen. Months later, they returned to that same rooftop. The city stretched endlessly before them, alive and merciless. Daniel slipped his arm around Ethan's shoulders, pulling him close. "You were right," Daniel admitted softly. "About what?" Ethan asked, leaning into him. "That I was protecting myself, not you. But I don't want to hide anymore." Ethan smiled, pressing a kiss to his jaw. "Good, because I'm terrible at keeping secrets." Daniel laughed, really laughed, the kind that loosened something inside him. The skyline glittered, and for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about power or reputation or control. He was thinking about Ethan, about love, about the life they were building, messy and imperfect, but theirs. And as Ethan laced their fingers together, Daniel realized the truth he'd been running from all along. Strength wasn't in distance. It was in letting someone close enough to break you and trusting they wouldn't. Their story wasn't about perfection. It was about courage, jealousy, longing, and finally, peace. It was about two men who had spent too long pretending, only to find that happiness had been staring them in the face the entire time. And under the New York sky, with Ethan's hand in his, Daniel knew this wasn't just survival anymore. It was love. Forever love. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.